There's a scary new pollutant that is showing up in our drinking water and in the food that we eat. It's called microplastic, and it comes from the breakdown of plastic waste that we have dumped into the environment. Once they get into our bodies, these particles can stay there for years, and they are likely to cause cancer. That's what animal testing has shown. But why are these tiny bits of plastic in us in the first place? What are the signs that you might have been exposed to them? And how can you remove them from your body? If you want to find out, keep watching. Plastic waste is a huge problem for our planet. The production of plastic never stopped growing over the last few decades. In 2019 alone, more than 275 million metric tons of plastic were produced worldwide. Unfortunately, only about 10% of that gets recycled. The rest either goes to landfills, or is burned, or leaks into the environment where it persists for hundreds of years. This plastic waste doesn't just take the form of water bottles and grocery bags. It also comes in the form of microfibers. These are tiny threads that are less than a sesame seed across that come off synthetic. Fabrics like polyester and nylon during washing, as these synthetic clothes rub against each other in the washing machine, or when they're worn and then rubbed against our skin, they release these microfibers into the environment and eventually into our bodies. These microfibers are extremely durable and don't degrade easily. They've been found in deep waters, in fish, in salt, and even in beer. You might be wondering how something so small can be bad for you. Well, to start with, we don't know exactly how they affect humans, since research on this topic is still scarce. However, we do know how they affect other animals. Studies on mice showed that when they were fed plastic particles, it led to inflammation and organ damage, especially in the liver and the intestines. Other studies showed that these particles accumulated in their organs and caused tumors. While this was seen in rodents at very high doses of plastic, scientists estimate that the amount of plastic found in the average person is comparable to the amount found in these rodents. So there is a chance that these studies accurately represent what happens in humans too. The scary part is that most of the plastic in the ocean comes from discarded fishing nets and other pieces of debris that break down into particles smaller than a sesame seed called microplastics. The particles are everywhere. A study found that 93% of fish sold in California contained plastics and fibrous debris. Microplastics have also been found in tap water, bottled water, milk, and honey. So no matter where you turn to for sustenance, you might be consuming these particles along with it. If you really want to avoid them, you might want to think twice before buying a plastic water bottle. In one study, 93% of the plastic bottles tested positive for plastic particles. And if you thought that switching to a glass bottle would help, well, think again. These particles have also been found in glass bottles. One study found that all of the glass water bottles tested positive for plastic fibers, albeit fewer particles were found in the glass bottles compared to the plastic ones. But why do these particles end up in glass bottles? Well, that's because the majority of glass bottles are made by melting down old glass that was in contact with plastic. Whether it was in a plastic bottle or a different plastic product, those microplastics end up in the new glass bottle. But that's not all. Even if you switched to metal or ceramic bottles, you still wouldn't be safe. Those materials have been found to leach chemicals that are toxic to our health when exposed to plastic. So basically, there's no safe way to drink water if you're still using plastic in any way. So how does the plastic end up in our food? Well, most of it is due to the widespread use of plastic in agriculture. For example, plastic mulch films are used to cover fields of fruits and vegetables and protect them from weeds and pests. Not only are these films made from plastic, but farmers also use plastic pipes to deliver water and nutrients to crops and greenhouses. The plastic in these films and pipes degrades over time and makes its way into the food we eat. In fact, one study found that 76% of the plastic particles in a strawberry sample came from the plastic mulch film covering the field the strawberries grew on. Plastic has also been found in spices, sugar, and salt. One study found that half of the table salt samples they tested had plastic particles in them. Since we use salt in almost every meal, that means we could be eating a lot of microplastics without even knowing it. Now you might be wondering how big of a deal this really is. After all, these particles are so tiny, we can't even see them. Well, they might be small, but the impact they have on our health could be huge. Animal studies show that microplastics can cause inflammation in the gut, which leads to leaky gut syndrome. This condition occurs when the protective mucus and layer of the gut gets damaged, allowing bacteria and toxins to leak through the gut wall and into the bloodstream. There they activate the immune system and trigger inflammation, which leads to a variety of symptoms like abdominal pain, constipation, or diarrhea. Leaky gut syndrome has also been linked to autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, and even diabetes. And that's not all. Microplastics have also been found to impair our body's detoxification systems. Our liver plays a key role in removing toxins from our blood, but studies show that these particles can damage the liver and reduce its ability to get rid of toxins. When that happens, harmful substances like nicotine, alcohol, medications, and environmental toxins accumulate in our body and cause damage. Studies have also found that these particles cross the blood-brain barrier and reach our brain where they trigger neuroinflammation and oxidative stress. That means that these particles might play a role in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But perhaps the most alarming effect of microplastics is their link to cancer. Studies have found that mice fed plastic particles developed tumors in their intestines. The particles also spread to their lymph nodes and other organs. Now, while this was seen in mice, there's no reason to believe that humans will be any different. After all, we eat far more plastic than these poor mice did, and the effects aren't limited to rodents. One study found that rats that were fed plastic particles for 90 days experienced an increase in the number of abnormal cells in their liver, colon, and stomach, which is a possible early step in the development of cancer. While we can't reverse the damage that has already been done, there are some steps you can take to prevent further harm. First, you should try to avoid single-use plastics as much as possible. Bring your own reusable bags and water bottles with you when you go out, and make sure they're made from materials that don't contain plastic, like glass or stainless steel. When it comes to food, choose organic whenever possible and wash your produce thoroughly before eating. Although there's no guarantee that this will completely remove the particles, it will at least reduce the amount of plastic you consume. But what if you've already consumed microplastics? How can you remove them from your body? Well, you can start by cutting back on sugary foods and drinks as much as possible. That's because they tend to stick to the particles and make them harder to digest and absorb. Instead, you should focus on eating foods that contain soluble fiber like oats, beans, lentils, and flax seeds. These foods bind to the particles and help eliminate them from your body. You should also load up on cruciferous vegetables like kale, broccoli, and cabbage. These greens contain sulfur compounds that neutralize free radicals and reduce oxidative stress in your body. On the other hand, you should avoid processed foods as much as possible. These foods usually contain unhealthy fats and additives that can aggravate your gut and make it harder for you to digest the plastic. And don't forget about the power of hydration. Drinking lots of water will help flush out the toxins from your body and speed up their elimination. But you should be careful what kind of water you drink. Avoid plastic bottles at all costs. Instead, drink from glass, steel, or ceramic containers. Activated charcoal is another substance that you might want to consider taking. This type of charcoal is made from wood or other organic materials and has a highly porous structure that traps toxins and prevents them from being absorbed into the body. One study found that activated charcoal supplements removed 44% of the microplastics from the guts of rats. But remember, activated charcoal can interact with certain medications, so you should talk to your doctor before taking it. Finally, don't underestimate the power of regular exercise. Exercise helps improve circulation, which speeds up the removal of toxins from the body. It also helps reduce stress and strengthens the immune system, which can help fight inflammation and prevent disease. Now, if you liked learning about this, check out another video on how to boost your metabolism.